All right, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and kick it off with our second session. And in this session, I'm going to cover uh, key exfiltration prevention vectors. Some of you may have been on the session last week. I'll also be demonstrating scenarios for some of these vectors that we are launching by the end of the month. Um, in terms of all of you here, all security leaders, folks who are managing SecOps teams, this is your daily reality, right? So, one of your key goals is how do you ensure employees have the highest levels of productivity while also balancing securing corporate IP and preventing not just malicious or insider risk-related exfiltration behavior, but also it could be unintended data exposure. And some of the challenges that you come up on a daily basis relate to the rapid adoption of Gen AI assistants across all your functions. There are employees who may be using personal instances of Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, or even apps like ChatGPT and Copilot. So how do you get ahead of that and prevent risky behavior? Uh, and they may be doing this across multiple browsers, right? It's not just Chromium browsers or Edge. Uh, we've seen a couple of big announcements from OpenAI and Perplexity. All both their AI native browsers are out there. So how do you keep up with the rapidly evolving space and the innovation happening within the browsers itself? And traditionally, a lot of you folks are still worried about the traditional vectors like USB and print and so forth. And lastly, every company is almost a software company today. Your corporate source code is one of the most critical crown jewel that you need to protect. So there is the scenario where engineers who collaborate and work on your source code, how do you get visibility of any risky behavior there where corporate IP travels across uh, trusted boundaries and lands in unsanctioned destinations? So we're going to look at those scenarios. And there are many more that I'm sure keep you busy and are top of mind for you today. But excited to speak through these and showcase demos for each of those scenarios. So let's start with Gen AI assistance and the adoption that you're seeing with Gen AI. So um, even us at Nightfall, it's a mandate, it's a charter where everyone is encouraged to use the right Gen AI assistant for their use case. It could be Brian and me on the product side. We've got engineers, and it's the same thing in each of your organizations, right? You want to enable employees to use these assistants. At the same time, how do you ensure any corporate IP or sensitive content like PII and PHI avoided? Or employees are coached while they are using these AI. One of the key things is you may have provisioned or sanctioned corporate accounts in some of these AI assistants, which are allowed. So how do you distinguish between legitimate usage of these AI apps versus any personal instances of it? And Brian has already touched upon the core differentiator on detection platform accuracy here. But gone is the world where you can simply rely on keyword or traditional pattern matching based detection. You also want to combine AI-based detection with data lineage, so identifying the source and destination of where that content originates from, and then having those contextual policies is important. So this is the landscape today. And secondly, the identity context matters. A few of you have already brought up very interesting use cases that we've prioritized, and you'll hear from us shortly on those. But this is one of those interesting scenarios where session differentiation is a feature that's available today with our endpoint exfiltration product. But you could use the same app. It could be different accounts, and the risk vectors are very different, right? At no point in time do you want certain data to land up in a personal account for either a collaboration or a cloud storage app, or it could be an AI assistant. And Nightfall is able to distinguish that and also enforce any remediation actions or blocking actions that you may have placed, you may have defined in the policies. So with that, what I'm going to do is transition over to a demo to showcase how we can prevent shadow AI exposure, but also do that with the session differentiation capabilities. So this is the latest and greatest version of our console. For all the customers on the call today, you are going to be seeing the new menu bar with all these capabilities. Within a week from now, we'll start enabling these. Some of these features are already there, but let's look at the first scenario where I'm going to go to a personal version of my Google Drive account, and I'm going to try and upload a file that violates the policy. So as you can see here, this is my personal Gmail account for my demo environment. I'm going to go ahead and upload a file, which is a customer list, and I have a file classifier detector for the customer list. The moment I did that, it prevented me from uploading that file. And I get a batch notification, an on-device notification on my Mac. Um, this will be the exact same experience on Windows, and I can customize this message. On the other hand, if I try and upload that same file on my corporate Google Drive account, that file is just going to go through fine because it recognizes this has a copy of that file, but I just replaced that. So it recognizes, as you can see here, I was blocked previously, but this upload went through because this is my corporate account. So Nightfall is intelligent enough to distinguish that context, and we are doing that with a combination of the endpoint agents and the browser plugins that we have. So the browser plugin, the MDM profile that you've rolled out to mandate the installation of the browser plugin, the end users, employees do not have to log in. It's all silently handled with our endpoint agents. So that has the intelligent context on the session information and is able to distinguish between a personal versus a corporate account. And as you can see here, the moment I uploaded my file with a bunch of customer information, it blocked me, and then it created that particular event in real time. So if I navigate to the Assets tab, you have the ability to preview the entire file. You have the ability to download the file for any additional analysis and decide what further actions that you need to take. If after having being blocked, you of course have the user and the device information here. It shows the personal account information, the email associated with that user, and the platform, the browser where this was attempted, along with the activity log of the action itself. Okay, so that was the first scenario. Let's look at how we can prevent usage of shadow AI. So I'm going to take the confidential file that I have in my corporate account. It has a bunch of PII information. I'm going to paste that to an app like DeepSeek. So the moment I do that, I'm trying to paste this content via my keyboard, and then the moment I do that, I do get notified on my screen, right? There's yet another notification instantly in my notification center. So I'm being coached by my SecOps team that, hey, this is not acceptable use of sensitive IP, because not only is the fact that that clipboard event had sensitive content, but it also originated from a document that is in my corporate Google Drive account. So we take into consideration the lineage as well as the sensitivity of the file, and we could also slice and dice those policies by high risk user groups, given the fact that we pull user and user group information from your directory services like Okta, Entra ID, or Google Directory. You could tailor those policies to departing employees or to recently onboarded users, or there could be a specific department. So you can certainly do that. So the experience is just the same. You get a full preview of the clipboard content that I was trying to paste. You can annotate that, and any annotations you leave behind are retrained on a weekly basis for the global ID models that we have. And then it shows me the origin, the fact that this originated from my Google Drive account, it was going to this destination, and then I could also preview the clipboard activity here. Okay. So, in summary, we've looked at two scenarios. How do we prevent shadow AI, and how do we do that consistently, with the ability to also distinguish between personal or corporate usage of it could be ChatGPT or Copilot. The same workflow that you saw in Google Drive is possible here. Um, with that, I'm going to go back to the next scenario, and excited to share. I'm sure all of you have come across the announcements with the AI native browsers that are now generally available from both Perplexity. They've announced support for Comet, and OpenAI has announced support for Atlas. And there could be a lot of data exfiltration scenarios and a lot of risky behavior that can happen in these AI native browsers, given just the nature of how easy it is to do so. In addition to that, we heard you loud and clear. A lot of you had demanded support for privacy compliant or privacy focused browsers like Arc, Brave. We've also heard the Chromium browser Vivaldi from some of you. So excited to share. We now support all of these browsers that you see here outside of Chromium, Firefox, Safari, and Edge that we already supported. And with that, the experience is going to be the exact same, right? So in terms of the exfiltration vectors, with file uploads, it could be clipboard copy paste along with session differentiation. That remains consistent. As far as Mac OS is concerned, there are some caveats to be called out on Windows because Atlas themselves have not launched support on Windows. So that's TBD. With that, let me quickly transition to what that experience is going to look like. And in this case, let me take Claude as an example. I'm on Brave, but I could be on Arc, I could be on Atlas, and it's going to be the same. So the same content that I still have in my clipboard, which was originating from my corporate Google Drive account. I'm trying to paste it here. So you can see the same experience. By the way, I'm sharing my full screen. So of course, you're not seeing my notification center, and I'm having to take these screenshots, but I instantly get notified that I tried to paste something in Claude. This, of course, is my personal account. And then as that happens, we do generate that notification in real time. So it's going to just come in here, and you could expect the same experience, but it will call out the browser on which that event happened. So just like you see one for Google Chrome, there'll be one event that will be created for Brave as well. As you can see, that came up. So yeah, this is the Brave browser. Origination is docs.google.com and then Cloud AI. And rest of the details and richness of that experience is the exact same. Um, cool. I don't see any questions in the Zoom chat, Brian, but feel free to stop me if you see any new unanswered questions there. Um, I'll keep going. The next key capability that we are excited to announce, this is going to be available with the latest and greatest version, 1 to 10x on Mac OS, which is released slowly but surely. You'll see your devices getting updated with that latest version, and it's also getting released on Windows by the end of Jan. So of course you might have contractors, employees who may be using external storage media or USB devices. There could be certain sanctioned external storage devices that are allowed by your organization. And the beauty of our approach is you could absolutely filter, include or exclude those devices if they are sanctioned, but you can can block unsanctioned devices. And why this really matters is anyone could be off the network and they could use an USB, not connect to the network and try and exfiltrate content. It's going to work in that scenario regardless because the policies, whatever you may have defined in the console, still exist on the device and it's going to enforce that experience. So let's look at what this experience is going to look like, right? So I'm going to open my Finder and I have an external HP device that I've connected here. So let's go and try to copy uh, a confidential file. And as I do that, it's going to prevent me from doing so. As you can see, instantly it just disallowed that particular copy. And of course, it happens with the user getting visibility of that because they get the same notification experience. You could also configure Slack and email alerting, by the way. So that notification experience is consistent across platforms and comprehensive in terms of getting that on the device via Slack or other mechanisms. So you saw the end user side of that experience. If I go to the Nightfall console, um, all of this is happening instantly in a matter of minutes. There's the new violation that pops up, and it's going to show you the source and destination. It tells me that this confidential file violated the file classifier detector. It tells me the path, the mount path, the volume label, the serial number, and the vendor name as well. And of course, the data lineage on the fact that of course we had some sample data for the file classifiers that Brian demonstrated. So I just downloaded it from not just our help center, but also from our Google Drive. And then yeah, it's navigating to all these locations. So it's a lineage-based policy as well as a content-based policy that was violated. So, from a policy definition standpoint, let's quickly look at what's new in the context of the exfiltration policy. So, I'm going to pull this up. Um, most of you are familiar with the ability to define consistent policies across Mac OS and Windows. You could enable content scanning, right? And pick any of the detectors. You could filter it by departing employees, departing employee user groups that you may have, as you can see here. Uh, so this is how you create those tailored policies, and uh, this is all synced in real time from your directory services. And this is the new trigger, the new exfiltration vector that we've added support for in the policy. So not only can you filter it by specific device types, but you could also do it by vendor. So in the scenario, so by default, Nightfall has 1,200 vendors out of the box, and it's a growing list. So it could be any if there's a sanctioned set of USB vendors that are allowed, this will come in handy. And additionally, there's also serial number based inclusions exclusions. So this is the serial number of my USB device. So if at all the same USB device has been seen on multiple endpoints, you're going to see that metadata in here. So that's pretty handy. So you could tailor your policies accordingly. So this is the new exfiltration vector that you will see very shortly in the Nightfall console. With that, awesome. Let's keep going. I see no more questions. Um, the next exfiltration vector that we wanted to talk about is email exfiltration. And let's I would love to set the context and talk about the key architectural difference and how uh, what Nightfall does is different from how you may have set up email or DLP today. So, in speaking with a lot of you, what we've understood is there's a legacy multi-stage approach in how outgoing emails are scanned and secured in your environments, right? You could be using Exchange Online, you could be using Gmail. There are instances where you're relying on, let's say, as an example, Microsoft Purview to scan your outgoing emails. Microsoft Purview adds a header anytime that email is scanned, and then that email is routed via a gateway. Typically, it could be Proofpoint, Mimecast, or some similar vendors. And then that gateway is enforcing that remediation action of whether it needs to be blocked, quarantined, and so forth. Um, there's a big downside associated with this approach. With every hop, there are delays. It's just a very cumbersome and complex deployment model. There could also be, of course, the detection accuracy is also extremely poor with the kind of keywords and patterns that you need to create, even in a platform like Purview. As opposed to that model, in the case of Nightfall, you have a unified approach. You do not need to rely on a different tool for detection, and you do not need to rely on some other third-party gateway-based product for enforcement. You could combine both detection at accuracy and at the scale of a cloud-first platform that is built for the AI and SaaS native era, as well as enforce the remediation actions. It could be automated blocking, automated encryption based on the full context of that outgoing email. You could just set it up in a monitoring only policy, so that all of that is completely up to you. And we do that not just on Gmail, but we also have the ability to do that on Exchange Online. There are millions of emails that we scan on a monthly basis and are helping several customers secure those emails on a daily basis. Um, to touch upon the key differentiators with those two approaches, or you could even be relying on plain and simple like native Gmail DLP or using Purview for Exchange Online. But regardless of that path, these differentiators stand. So in terms of detection accuracy, you're just going to see a night and day difference with the accuracy and the fidelity of the alerts. It's going to be you're going to get more signal with Nightfall. The deployment is pretty straightforward. It's an inline connector-based deployment. It could be the SMTP relay in Workspace. The remediations are happening in real time. So in most cases, you're seeing emails getting blocked in a matter of seconds. From a SecOps experience standpoint, it's not a disjointed, disparate experience where you're having to manage and go to a gateway console and manage the deployment there. You're also having to learn, there's a big learning curve with Purview and manage it separately. Um, Over and above that, continuing on the detection accuracy differentiator, OCR scanning in most cases that just doesn't exist in some of these legacy tools, or it's an extra cost as we've learned in the case of Purview. Whereas with Nightfall, it's all natively baked in. We use computer vision models to tokenize and get pull the text out of these images, or these images embedded within PDF documents, scan that, and then instantaneously help you remediate that. Lastly, quickly touching upon the policy changes. So, be it the endpoint product, be it our API-based SaaS apps, we support a dozen plus SaaS apps today. All the policy changes are getting synced in real time, right? Depending on the scale of your organization, you might see delays of several hours to several days. In case of apps like Purview, for the policies to actually get synced and get enforced on those, and all of this leads to a pretty high total cost of ownership and a burden, a SecOps burden for you. With that, I'm going to transition to a demo and I'm going to showcase what email exfiltration looks like.
Anant,
With
before you jump into the demo, we have a question from iTech. Historically, this would not cover Outlook client and only detect OWA. Is this now covering to detect emails being sent from Outlook desktop app?
A couple of questions. Love that question. So, with our inline email scanning product, irrespective of whether you use Outlook, you use the mobile app on iPhone or Android, or the Outlook mobile app, or you're using Outlook Web Access, all outgoing emails will be scanned and you could enforce blocking or any other remediation capabilities. But to the specific question from ITAC, desktop clients is something that we are adding support for in the context of exfiltration, and it's going to land within a month from now. So, yes, the scenario that you described where I could upload an attachment to Microsoft Outlook, the client, the desktop client on Mac or Windows, and then try and send that email. If it is originating from a high value source app and you want to prevent that from happening, that capability is coming up shortly and will be supported pretty soon. Um, Awesome. And to just make it even more explicit, a lot of the traditional endpoint DLP and IRM tools, a vast majority of them do not even have the inline scanning approach, right? So they are going to be relying just on the endpoint and the browser plugin or the Outlook add-in to perhaps scan that email, but it's going to be super flaky. We are happy for you to for prospects or for folks who are evaluating the platform. We are happy for you to try those scenarios out and see how we have a comprehensive approach for Exchange Online or Gmail, both from a sensitive data exposure and an exfiltration standpoint. Let me quickly go ahead and let's cover a couple of scenarios here. So uh, I'm going to paste some PHI content in my email that I'm going to send via Gmail here. So let's go ahead and send this email. So I picked up sample PHI data from our playground. And then let's also do that via Exchange Online. And let's pick a um, debugging scenario. Of course, these are contrived scenarios, but it could be a it could be a confidential document. It could be uh, financial statement or any of the 22 other categories that Brian talked about. So I've sent a couple of emails from both Gmail and Exchange Online, and these are going to be blocked. You are going to be seeing both the end user side of the experience and the SecOps experience. In addition to this capability, we also have a self encryption capability with Gmail. So um, what that does is there's a plugin and you could collaborate with external partners. So this plugin and the self encryption experience is completely embedded within the Gmail Compose window. So anything that you enter here will be encrypted, and the recipients will be receiving that in encrypted form. The only way to access that, Wesley had a question at the top of our call. The only way to access this encrypted email is going to be via the secure reader. So you could easily log in with a one-time login code and get access to that encrypted. It could be an attachment, it could be the content. So that's how it works. And the end users have some additional controls of when the email should expire, whether the attachments should be encrypted or not, and so forth. So that's yet another powerful capability. And let's go to the email experience. So as you can see, the email that I'd sent about a minute back, it was blocked. Uh, from a SecOps standpoint, you get a preview of that content, the source and destination, or rather the recipients and the sender information, which policy it violated, and the activity log that it was blocked. Right, you could go navigate this and see all the content. It also had some patient information. So all of those detectors are violated. And the same experience, same consistent experience is true of Exchange Online as well. So while that goes through, While I pull that up, Brian, any questions on the chat that I could take?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
So keep your
Yeah,
questions
so
coming.
yeah, thanks, Brian. So this is the experience. Like you could of course customize this, but there are templates that the senders receive the moment that email is blocked, and you could attach your security policy or acceptable use context anytime this happens, and then you are also setting up email alerts to the end users. So that email alert or the Slack alert or the Teams alert has the context of hey, why did my email get quarantined or why did it get blocked, and they see that full context in the alert itself. So this is the latest one for the latest email that I'd sent. And yeah, this is an example of the Exchange Online block with all the other metadata here. um, I'll quickly touch upon the policy. So, yeah, this is the new alert that came through for the email that I just sent a minute back. I got this block notification, and you'll see a new event come through. But in terms of the policies, just quickly touching upon the email exfiltration policies. So, you have the ability to scope these by senders, by recipient domains. So if there are certain domains, contoso.com, where your emails that are originating from your corporate domain should not even land in those external domains, then you could set up those policies absolutely, and it's the exact same experience where we are pulling the user information from the directory services, and then these are the three inline automated actions. Block takes precedence. If you have enabled a couple, like more than one action, then the email will always be blocked. But if you want to quarantine it, the experience slightly varies. Like you could go and release the email from the Gmail quarantine box, and you could do that via the Exchange Online Admin Center as well, to release and subsequently deliver that to the end recipients. Um, cool. So we covered the email exfiltration channel as well. Uh, let's transition back to our slides here, and then we'll look into. Awesome. So, continuing with the next set of vectors. So, source code exfiltration is a vector that we've also heard pretty often, and quite a lot of you folks have asked us about it. So the scenario here, of course, there could be departing engineers, there could be certain employees who might push corporate code to personal GitHub repos. There are certain signals, right? Typically, the way to think about this is there are um, trusted boundaries. So your organization, your corporate organization, or the corporate repos that you have, no source code should land up in a personal repository or a personal organization that the developer has. And this code doesn't leave as files. So the exfiltration vectors that we've talked so far relate to either file system activity or clipboard activity, browser activity. But in case of the Git commands, the endpoint agents or the traditional uh, vendors, endpoint DLP vendors, are blind to any exfiltration that may be happening via some of these protocols or these commands. And we'll look at a scenario where we can create a policy to define a trust boundary and see how you can get visibility anytime an engineer or a departing employee is trying to exfiltrate corporate source code. So the gist of it is our latest endpoint release does have support for Git push monitoring, and it's supported across GitHub, GitLab, any sort of capability that uses the Git protocol underneath. They could also be doing this through an IDE client, but as long as that IDE, and most of these IDEs already use the Git commands, so as a wrapper, so we will get visibility of that irrespective of whether they're using the command line or the IDE to exfiltrate that content. So I'm going to transition over to a demo of what that experience looks like in right now. So let's take a look. So the scenario that I have in the case of Git push monitoring is I have a corporate repository that I have set up, and then I've cloned that repository on my on my laptop, and I'm going to make some changes, commit that, and try and send it to the remote repository, the personal version of my repository. And we are going to see the moment I try to push that into my personal repo, then it's going to prevent me from doing that. So let me pull up a terminal window here, and then we're going to look at how that's going to play out. So this is my terminal window. As you can see, the the origin here and the remote. So the Wayne Enterprise repository is my corporate repository, and I've set up a personal repository, which is a demo repository. I'm going to make some changes into the corporate repository that I synced on my device, and I'm going to push that onto my remote. So let's go ahead and make certain changes. So the first thing that I am going to do is I create a new branch in my weather forecasting app from my corporate repository, and then I created a new branch. I'm going to try and push a new change, a very minor change that basically allows me to um, add a log file in this particular scenario, and with that change to this particular repo, I'm going to commit that change locally. So let's go ahead and commit that log file change in my corporate repository. So you can see I've pushed that change to my corporate repository here, and then I'm going to push this entire repo to my personal destination. So this is triggered. So everything that I did till this point on, any changes that I made to the cloned version of the corporate repository, that was all fine. But the moment I did the git push to my personal repository under a new branch, it's going to create, it's going to detect that the Nightfall agent is going to detect the git push that happened to my personal repo, and it's going to show up as an exfiltration event. So let's look at, so you looked at that particular experience in the terminal. I went through that flow, and now I'm going to transition to what that event looks like, right? So the moment I pushed it to that destination, so as you can see, I have the git push event that came through. So I have a weather forecasting app that I had in my Wayne Enterprises corporate repo. That's the remote origin, and then it's landing into my personal GitHub repo. And the moment it happens, it has the user and the device context along with the policy that it violated. So it is doing that on the basis of a trust boundary. And yeah, you'll also see the risk being updated for this scenario. I can quickly touch upon how we set this up. So basically, for the folks who are already using us today, you're familiar with the concept of domain collections. This is where you could specify your trust boundaries. So for source code exfiltration, I have defined the fact that, hey, my corporate repositories are in here. So any organization or any repository that appears in this high value source app, it should be monitored. And anytime source code is getting exfiltrated to the personal repositories, then I should get notified. So if I go to the policy, um, I'm going to go in here, and then I have the source code exfiltration policy that I've created. So I'm doing basically a domain not in check. So this particular source code GitHub organizations checks the fact that this is originating from Wayne Enterprises, and any changes that go into non-Wayne Enterprise destinations, it's going to monitor that here. And you saw the notification, the incident getting generated. Um, so this was the scenario for source code exfiltration. Um, any questions
No,
here?
there's a question. Was the Git push blocked or was it just monitored? And can we do blocking?
Great question. So in V1 today, this capability is monitoring only, and we are doing it on the basis of trust boundaries. As a follow-up, yeah, we will evaluate and add support for the ability to block those as well. Right now, it's monitoring only. That brings me to the last scenario from a demo standpoint, which is Nix. So think of Nix as an AI-based SOC analyst. Brian, you have a really amazing way to speak through this, but to quickly cover this, think of Nix as a colleague on the SecOps team. It's going to enable you to ask questions in the natural language, expedite the amount of time that you need to triage and make any investigations for events. So we have some default prompts that we've added, as you can see on the left-hand side screenshot. So you could just click and get either an on-demand response, or there's a weekly insider risk brief that gets refreshed that you could consume and decide what follow-up tuning or what follow-up actions you wish to take. But some sample examples here would be: show me the highest risk users, show me Bob's data movement over the last couple of weeks. What are the most critical high risk destinations or domains in my environment based on this exfiltration activity? So these are the scenarios that you could come in and ask Nix those questions. So for example, uh, I'm going to use uh, I'm going to use one of the default prompts, and the moment I click on it, Nix is going to analyze it. Automatically analyzes all the exfiltration incidents as new incidents come in, and it presents a summary here. But for any on-demand prompt, as you can see, it goes back, looks at the past 7 days of data. In this particular case, it notices that, hey, there's a single user in this tenant who's engaging into risky behavior related to uploads. It also identified this couple of scenarios that we've tried out where customer lists and financial forecasts were uploaded to a personal destination. You could ask other kinds of activities into, what are the top upload destinations, and so forth. So it's a very powerful experience. As you can see, it also recommended, like, gave me filters, quick actions that I can use to look at the events, take a preview, and you could decide on the next course of action that you wish to take. Anything you'd like to add, Brian?
No, you did a great job.
All right. We're running ahead of time. Any other questions that have come up in the chat?
There, yeah, there is one. How does this work with GitHub DLP, or is this solely for exfil scenarios?
So this
Victor.
is Yeah, thanks, Victor. So this is solely from a data exfiltration standpoint. As far as secret scanning is concerned, there's a independent capability that we do have where on any PRs, any changes that happen in GitHub, we can detect secrets or any other sensitive content as per your policies for that matter in GitHub. So think of that as a much more powerful and accurate secrets detection capability than what you may be used to with the native versions there. And then, yeah, the Git push monitoring is independent and is with the data exfiltration product. Any other questions, Brian?
No, that was it. I would just add, you can have content scanning on. So the content scanning would be the same as our GitHub product. It's just that this one's going to be triggered by any kind of data movement. And it would detect secrets with the same engine, the same transformer engine that we use for secret scanning with GitHub APIs.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. So Yeah, let's talk about rollout strategy. So for the folks on the call who are already using us today, you're well on your way. Most of you are all like fully deployed and adopted. For any new customers or prospects on the call, as far as so we'll cover a few deployment best practices here. So in the context of Nightfall, think of the policies that you need are directly tied to the exfiltration vector. So if you have a Gen AI use case where you want to distinguish between personal and corporate instances of Gen AI use, or you want to prevent it outright, that's an independent dedicated policy. There's a different policy that could be focused on source code that's just tailored to your engineering teams. Um, there could be a browser coverage like the typical vectors around file uploads. You just have one policy to rule them all across any and all browser platforms. So that's a pretty good benefit. And then some of the traditional vectors around USB and print, that's an independent policy of its own. So in each of these cases, you have the session context for the applicable events in the context of the browser vectors, which is file uploads or clipboard paste. You have the content intelligence, so you are enabling detection rules. You are also looking at the source and destination, which is basically the lineage. So a prerequisite here is going to be the domain collections, and then we work with you to have those. We have a bunch of templates that just prior to full rollout, full deployment, we'll help you define and implement those domain collections in a single call. But you may already have your trust boundaries established, and it's just a matter of coming to the console and uploading a CSV or defining those. So that's the policy experience. I'm excited for Brian to talk about how we're going to flip the model and look at it like by default, but I don't want to steal Brian's thunder, so I'll just wait for his next session for him to talk about it deeply. But yeah, in summary, each policy solves a different problem. It's a different exfiltration vector that you can monitor. In terms of the rollout phases, the first this is just preparatory phase, prerequisites almost. So, yeah, we do recommend you use any of your MDM tools. We have support. There's documented support for 7 to 8 different vendors today. We continue to rapidly, aggressively add instructions for any new vendors that we come across. But you could roll out the endpoint agent and browser plugin in a matter of like 1 to 2 weeks. We can move as fast as you can. Additionally, we also recommend you connect with your directory services, right? So that gives you the intelligence, the context and richness that you need to create those tailored policies. And there are some common domain collections across Gen AI assistants, across any CRM or ticketing tools, across the developer tools, social media, and so forth. So we can work with you to help you define these from the get-go. Once you've done that, once you've rolled out the endpoint agent along with the browser plugin, which is all like the browser plugin is just packaged with the endpoint agent, you don't need to do anything extra. It's all automated as long as you're rolling it out via the MDM. In the second phase, so we're talking about, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks into your Nightfall deployment, you can create these broad policies and have pretty strong monitoring to get visibility across these vectors. And you'll start to see a pretty solid understanding across different functions as to which employees, which groups are violating your defined policies, what sort of data movement is happening in your organization, and then you could decide to further like ratchet it down or make some adjustments to make it more aggressive or more restrictive for a subset of your employees. We do have a managed detection and response program on our side. So our MDR analysts, it's a paid offering. So if you're interested, our MDR analysts could work with you, and it could be a couple of different flavors. Where if you want us on the Nightfall MDR team to review, remediate, escalate on your behalf, we can do that. Or it could be a low touch engagement where we are annotating stuff, looking at the policies and making those recommendations. So it could be as frequent or less frequent as per your choice. So that's another tool in your armor. And lastly, from a remediation standpoint, so at some point in the second month of your deployment, we do expect the events or incident insights that you're getting to be more or less settled, and you'll have a pretty good handle on what sort of remediation controls do you want to apply by each of these vectors. So depending on the content, the data movement, and the kind of destinations that you're seeing in your environment, you could have strict blocking policies, or in some cases you could have monitoring only policies and coach your employees on the right behavior or acceptable use of content. So that brings us, so that's the deployment best practices. Happy to work with you. Each of you have a dedicated CSM, customer success manager, uh, Chris, Ruben, on our side, and then we've got Chris Woolsey, who's joined us last week as the VP of Customer Success. Any questions you may have, yeah, we'll follow up in your channels, and then we'll take it from there. But with that,
Hey, Anant, I had one comment about your last three slides.
mhm.
And and that is, I feel like those numbers are really, really conservative. This last week, we rolled out three Microsoft integrations plus endpoints in 15 minutes, to the point where we had monitoring policies up and running so they can start learning. And I was just so proud of all of our engineering folks for the work that they did to make that seamless. So even though I believe these dates are conservative, and we're getting faster and faster all the time.